Logan,
What?
I saw you die.
What?
I saw you die
What? Just now?
a while ago. It's not like I get a complete picture. More like looking through a keyhole. All I can see is one part of a person's life. Their death. And I saw yours.
So what did you see?
I see you on your back. There's blood everywhere. You're holding your own heart in your hand.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Every Marvel Movie Ever. I'm your host, Gabe Thomas. With me, as always, is your co-host, Francisco Alcala, and we are here today to bring you a very sad episode of Every Marvel Movie Ever as we talk about maybe the most bummer movie we've ever talked about on this show.
This is, I think, the most depressing movie we're ever going to talk about on the show.
Yeah, I mean...
like, by a long shot.
Infinity War is probably the next closest, because, you know, everybody died, but they figured that one out.
Yeah, they figured that out, and that movie's still pretty goofy.
I
This
guess
movie
so.
isn't the most goofy movie in the world.
No, this is not an extremely goofy movie.
Exactly.
If I could compare it to a Disney film, I would not compare it to that one. I would probably compare it to Robin Hood 19 whenever that came out. I don't even know. Well, Franny, this has been a little bit of an anticipated thing for you over the past couple years because I hung out with you the day after I saw Logan, or the day I saw it. I saw it in the morning when it came out, and then we hung out during the day, and I told you all about it. And that was over 4 years ago now.
Yep, and I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, you hadn't seen it, but now you have, and it's one of those... Well, probably by now it's one of the only Marvel movies you hadn't seen, if you think about it.
We're getting pretty... I think almost everything after this I've seen.
And we've also entered what I think, far and away, is the best year for superhero movies of all time, 2017. We have Logan, we have Guardians 2, we have Spider-Man Homecoming, we have Thor Ragnarok. Like, it's just hit after hit after hit. In DC, you have Wonder Woman, you have the Lego Batman movie, you have Justice League. We talked enough about that last week.
Yeah.
We didn't mention that one, but it's a big year. I'm really excited. This is the peak year, in my opinion. Franny, what did you think about Logan?
Thought it was bad.
What?
No.
Is that true?
No, absolutely not. It is a very, very good movie. Not a movie to watch if you're already depressed.
Uh-huh.
Maybe stay away from this movie, but it is very, very good.
Yes. But how far would you go with that, Franny? How good is it compared to all the other great movies we've talked about? Because we talked about some pretty great movies on this show.
I would say of the X-Men movies, this is definitely one of my favorites.
Whoa, that's a low ball from what I expected, but that's okay.
There's MCU movies that I definitely like more than this. This is still a really good movie.
I think this is probably the best movie that we will talk about on this show. Save for maybe Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 and Logan are kind of neck and neck for me as, like, the best ones.
You mean The Amazing Spider-Man 2?
That's, yeah, Franny, you know what I meant. I meant
Okay.
Amazing Spider-Man 2
Just
and
making
Far
sure.
From Home. Yeah, those two are my favorite Spider-Man movies. I don't know what you thought I meant. Okay, well, there you go, Franny. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you didn't think it was boring. Because
Does anybody think it's boring?
I would hope not, but there are no lasers in it.
Yeah.
This might be the only movie that we ever talk about that doesn't have lasers in it, except for maybe the Punisher movies, I guess.
Yeah, I
Those
feel
have
like-
lasers. This is a serious movie. It's like basically a Western with Wolverine. But there is still some incredible action in this. Like, there is some disgusting stuff in here.
The movie definitely sets the tone in literally the very first scene.
Yes, well, I had implied that like a week or two ago, because as we've gotten closer, I've hinted more and more about this movie, because I've been so excited to watch it again. It might be my favorite Marvel movie, but at the same time, it's not one I can watch very often, because like you said, it's devastating.
It's very sad.
It's so sad. So I can't watch it too frequently, but whenever I do, I'm just completely like just jaw on the floor the whole time, because it is a masterfully done movie. From the opening scene, it's just brutal violence and the most realistic world depicted in any of these movies.
It's probably the most violent one we've seen in a while.
Yeah, it might be the most genuinely violent Marvel movie. I mean, there's probably more like gore in Deadpool movies or whatever. That's kind of silly.
Yeah.
This is the most like, that's a horrible thing that people are doing to each
Yeah.
other. Like, people are doing
oh my
horrible
god,
things to each
Wolverine
other.
just fucking stabbed somebody in the head.
Yeah, yes, that's one of the highlights. I completely forgot that X-24 decapitates that farmer guy.
Yeah.
And I screamed when that happened, 'cause I did not remember that at all. And we're peaking because of that. I'm sorry, everybody. The audio is a little up and down today. That's
Yeah,
okay. That's all
as
right.
usual.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't level the Snyder Cut episode wrong, but it was left and right,
Yep.
the stereo. Some people complained about it. Some people said it was better. So I don't know what to make of it. It will not happen again. But it was an interesting experiment for what was an experimental film. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I don't want to rush right into the action. I think first we need to talk about, this is a James Mangold movie. He also did The Wolverine, which I also think is one of the best X-Men movies.
I can definitely tell.
It's really lucky that we got a terrible Wolverine movie and then two incredible Wolverine movies, I think, back to back.
Balances out.
Right. I mean, I think this is much better than the Wolverine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're very different.
Yeah.
That one has a giant robot. This one does not. This one does not have giant robots. It just has tears and blood. So, very separate from each other. But you can tell that this is made by the guy who made that.
Yeah.
Mostly because that is a very violent movie too. Like, that movie isn't R-rated, but it's still horrific and horrible things happen. That movie starts with Logan getting melted down. All the skin melts down to atomic blast. So that's pretty fucking horrific. I don't know where this takes place. I don't really care. But the only movie that has to have happened is the first X-Men movie, because they talk about the Statue of Liberty, which is how that movie ends.
Yeah.
So I feel like this could take place in the universe of all the other ones, as long as it's in the Days of Future Past, like, fixed timeline. So I guess this could just be after that.
It's very vague about what actually happened before this movie, so it could kind of have happened at any point. Because
Right.
they bring up that all the X-Men are, like, dead a few times, but they
Professor
never...
X killed them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty devastating. That's a pretty horrible thing. And he doesn't even know that until right before he dies.
I mean...
Oh, full spoilers.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Yeah, but this is a more spoilery one than usual, I feel.
Yeah. Which version of the X-Men dying do you think is worse, though?
What do you mean? Which version?
Like the Old Man Logan comic, or in
where
this?
Mysterio makes him kill
Yeah,
everybody?
where Mysterio just makes fucking Logan kill every single X-Men.
I don't know, I kind of think the movie one is more devastating. Because that sucks for Wolverine when
Yeah.
he becomes a pacifist. But I think the fact that Charles Xavier was, like, the greatest mutant, and the only thing he ever wanted to do was protect these people who were, like, feared by society, and he killed all of
Literally
them.
obliterated every single one.
And everyone knows that, but he doesn't know that. I think that's more devastating. Because Logan's always doing horrible things. Usually,
Not a great dude.
at a point, it's not his fault most of the time. Like, he didn't do that because he was an asshole. He did that because he was tricked into doing it, basically. But Professor X wasn't tricked into doing it. He just went kind of crazy and did it. He has these terrible seizures that you see twice in the movie where they just devastate everyone around them. Those sequences are incredible, too, especially the second one, that casino. Like, that is
I love that scene.
great stuff.
Even though it's, like, really confusing sometimes, because, like, everyone is frozen, but obviously Logan can still move around. But he starts, like, killing people, and it's like...
Yeah.
It almost looks like time is frozen, but he kills them and they're, like, aware of it. Like, they can move their eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, because time isn't frozen, but everybody.
Yeah,
is,
it's
like,
just everyone
slowly-
else is frozen.
Which is interesting because that's a thing you do see in some of the X-Men movies. There's that moment when they're in the museum in X-Men 2 and he freezes everybody, and there's also that moment in the end of the Wolverine when they show up at the airport. That same thing happens, and this must take place in the Wolverine because you see one of the samurai swords, like, on the wall in his house towards the start. So maybe that's happened. It would make sense if that happened, especially because there is a thing that is said in the Wolverine that comes back into play at the very end of this movie, which we'll talk about, but we can't blow that right at the start. That's a pretty big deal. But this is the thing about the X-Men movies for me, is it's like, I like most of them, and the good ones are great for the most part. Like, there's some that are just good or just okay, but I feel like there is a big difference between the great ones and the bad ones. But I don't know, like, the ones that people think are bad, I don't think are that bad. Like Origins is a bad movie,
Yeah, Origins is
but it's
rough.
kind of fun and silly. Like it's so bad.
It's
that
fun to make
good.
fun of.
Right. That's a guilty pleasure style movie because it's just so wrong. It's so bad that I enjoy it. The only one I think is bad and kind of boring is Dark Phoenix. But even that, I feel like would be more interesting if I went back to it.
Well, that one does have eye lasers. So
That one has the eye laser and the spaceship. But that I kind of actually like. Like that's kind of actually like hilarious. There's no way they thought that was serious. It's not really-
I definitely hope not.
It's like the campy '90s X-Men at the start, so I enjoy that part. But that movie makes a lot of mistakes.
Bad decisions.
Dreadlocks man being the main one for me. The scene where Magneto screams at a helicopter is also very embarrassing. But,
Forcing a crippled man to walk.
yeah, that's weird. Other than that, most of the X-Men movies I think are kind of good. Like Last Stand has a lot of weird things, but I enjoy watching it. X2 I think is overrated, but it's still like a pretty solid superhero movie. I don't know. The X-Men movies get a bad rap.
Yeah, other than the ones that are like very obviously bad, they're like okay.
Like we like Apocalypse.
Yeah, they're
I
not
think that's
unwatchable.
That's the tilting one because most people are like, that one's fine. I like that one. I like
Yeah,
that one quite a
it
bit.
was good.
Both did, but no, nothing really comes close to this for me except for Days of Future Past. But that's a very different kind of good. You know, that's like, that is lasers and all the X-Men are there and time travel and stuff. This is just, a man is broken and he's Wolverine and he has to do one last mission, basically.
Yeah, like Days of Future Past is almost more of like a fan service movie.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff in there. It's like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And this is a very serious like drama movie.
Yeah.
Very, very different.
Oh yeah, no, it feels like one of those westerns. And my favorite thing about westerns, where it's like good, the bad, the ugly, whatever, those movies, the protagonist is never a good person. He's just better than the people who are worse. Which is like, that's all it is, and that's what this is. Wolverine is an asshole, and he screams at his child constantly, and he's terrible to Taliban, even though he's like the only other Taliban. That's
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
I literally heard you say it and I just didn't stop you.
Like, why would you say that? The Caliban.
There you go.
Oh my god, that's an unfortunate name. And he's in Apocalypse for some reason.
Yeah.
Remember, he's Psylocke's friend or whatever.
For like 2 minutes.
2 minutes. That's just what a random X-Men to pick for these
Yeah.
movies. I don't understand that. He's used to much greater effect in this, obviously. Played by Stephen Merchant. He's terrible to him. Like, the only people in his life, he's like emotionally abusive to. He's abusing drugs and alcohol, and he's just so sad.
And he's like, yep, I'm dying.
And he's
Oh,
dying.
well.
He has poison in his body. Adamantium has gotten to the point where it's poisoning him. The reason he hasn't died for the like hundreds of years is because he didn't have the adamantium skeleton. Now that you have a metal skeleton for 50 years, that's gonna fucking wear on you.
Yeah. I was like Googling stuff because apparently everyone is very confused as to why it's poisoning him.
Yeah.
But why would it not poison him?
That's a thing. Yeah, you know, people get poisoned by like lead or whatever.
Yeah, people are like, well, adamantium doesn't break down in his body. That doesn't matter.
Or, I mean, maybe it does. Why wouldn't it?
Because supposedly it's like the strongest metal in the
doesn't-
world or whatever.
I don't think that
like,
matters. I'm not a man of the science, but that doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
even if it doesn't, his body can still be trying to reject an entire metal skeleton.
Yeah, right.
His body can only fight that off for so long.
And it makes total sense that that would slow down his mutation, especially in this world where there are no more mutations, really. The only ones that exist are, like, genetically put into you from blood
Birth,
samples
yeah.
from people who... And, like I said, I thought I would forget it, but that end credit scene in X-Men Apocalypse, that's, like, the only way it ties in. Is you see, like, his blood samples being taken from Weapon X, and then in the phone video, that's what that is.
Yeah.
So that's, like, that's what that scene is, basically.
I
Who
guess.
cares? Nobody cares. But it is. There are no more mutations. There's like that, and this is like super implied, but there's that corn, the genetically modified corn that's like made by the evil company, and that's kind of It's kind of like, cereal in the 50s that would like stop kids from masturbating.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's like that. That's
Yeah,
like
how cornflakes were made or whatever.
Yeah, that's the implications. It's like Kellogg's but for mutants.
Yeah.
Because there's that part at the end when X-23 is like sneaking around. She's gonna take that guy on the car out or whatever, and the bad guy Xander Rice or whatever the fuck, he's talking to Logan about cereal for like a second. Right? He's like, "This is all the ways we've slowed it down," or some weird villain spiel that would be really bad if it was the focus of the scene, but it's like in the background, so it doesn't matter. But so there's all these things that are slowing down mutations anyway. It makes sense that he'd be fucking poisoned by his mutant skeleton.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's a horrible thing that's happened to him. So it makes total sense that his healing factor would be slowed down. And there's that great moment when he's talking with Caliban at the start, and he's like, yeah, your claws aren't coming out properly. You're fucking pulling bullets out of yourself, and you're not healing. Like, he knows he's breaking. He's broken, and I like that. Because even in that opening action sequence where he's beating up those guys who are stealing his car, also he's just a sad limo driver. That's so funny. Like, that is... It's just, he has the worst life that he could possibly end up with.
Yeah, he has like nothing good in his life at all.
He's hiding from the government, and he's hiding Professor X because Professor X his brain is a weapon of mass destruction.
People
now.
are looking for him.
Yeah, exactly. And
has
he
to spend all of his money getting medicine for him so he doesn't destroy the planet.
Right. All he wants to do is buy a boat so he can blow his brains out on it. That's all he wants, is to kill himself. But he can't kill himself until he's somewhere where Professor X can't affect anybody in the middle of the fucking ocean. Like, that is the driving force behind him in the movie. Even the whole movie. Like, even as, things pick up with him and X-23 and he starts to accept her more as his daughter.
That's still his motivation.
He still tells her, oh yeah, I was thinking about killing myself. Like, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
His mind doesn't change just because he has something good in his life again.
It's
it's still bad.
I still want to die. This is good, but not good enough.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe at the very end that changes a little bit, but he still gets to, die.
Yeah,
but
he still gets what he wants.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. And yeah, X-23 is a big part of this, Daphne Keane, and I think she's incredible in that because she's like 10, and she is fucking feral. Like,
yeah, it's very impressive that, one, she kind of did all of the stunts herself, and also the majority of the movie, she does not speak whatsoever.
Right, but you get all that emotion from her face.
Yeah.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up. When it comes to this movie and exposition, there is like one scene and everything else is visual, basically. I feel like other than the scene where he watches the footage on the phone, which just explains like her and his relation to her, other than that, you could watch this movie with the sound off and understand it, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it is all visual. There is dialogue and there is important, speeches and moments, but you can totally get all of it just from looking at it, which is great because that's kind of how comic books are.
Yeah.
So you can get the context from the dialogue, but you can just look at it and understand what's going on because of the language. Like, visually, I think that's just incredible about this. And I love that about it, too. That's another thing. Westerns, the same. They watch Shane a couple times in the movie. It's like this famous Western from the 50s, and then she recites that speech at his funeral at the end, and that's beautiful. But that movie, again, has a lot of, like, iconic shots where it's just, I understand completely what's going on. No one has spoken once. It's incredible stuff. I love that.
Speaking of comics, though.
Oh, yeah?
There's the plot point about the comic book.
Right.
I actually think it works really well, and it very easily could have not.
Yeah. That is an insane decision to make. There are X-Men comics that are just X-Men comics in our universe.
In the universe, like, Logan fully states, like, yeah, this stuff technically happened, but not this way.
A quarter of it maybe happened,
Yeah.
but not like this. Exactly. And that's how you work the yellow suit into this. Like, everybody was like, is he going to put on the... I remember when this movie was coming out, everybody was like, is he going to put on the yellow suit at the end?
It's like, no.
That would be goofy and bad. If he was going to put that on, it would have been in probably the Wolverine.
Yeah.
Which would have fit a little bit better, I think. But I'm so glad he didn't. And you can still work it in.
Yeah.
Because if these movies just went on and they never mentioned it, it would be a little disappointing. But you see it in the comic books, and that kid has an action figure of that later at the end. So you work in the suit without having him wear it. And it makes total sense. That's just, oh, this is like a goofier version of what we would wear. We'd wear leather jumpsuits. Nobody wants to see that in a fucking comic book. Make it ridiculous.
Yeah. No one wants us to wear all black.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I mean, other than every director who's ever made an
Yeah.
X-Men movie. Oh, just Bryan Singer, I guess.
Anyway.
That's a bad hat, Harry. Yeah, it's really embarrassing. Anyway, let's not dwell on that. As
Yeah.
they say.
Let's dwell on a good movie.
Yeah. But no, I'm glad you brought up the comic book thing. It's great that the key motivator behind X-23's story is these coordinates from a comic book, which is just, oh, I think that this is a place. I have hope it's a place because I read it in a story about you that was just written randomly.
No idea if it's actually real, but I hope so.
It's pure hope, which
Yeah.
is kind of great because, you know, her and her mom, who doesn't make it through much of the movie, and then there's essentially no female characters in the entire film, but that's okay. Bechdel test failed, I guess, but that's fine. Yeah, other than that, it's like both of them were just in this horrible situation, and they escaped, and they think that this one guy can save them. They find him at a fucking funeral, like just somebody's funeral. Something I think is interesting about this, and I remember noticing this in the theater. This is similar to the Ben Parker thing in the Snyder Cut, where you see that on a grave. There is a big grave in this movie that says Rogers on it. I'm not kidding. I've noticed it every single time. It's a little out of focus, but it clearly just says Rogers. Nothing under it, nothing over it. I promise that's a thing. And I've never heard anyone bring it up. I will find this for you. I'll find it, because I don't like your snide little look you're giving me. I swear it's true. Gotcha, Franny. Right now you have to say that I was right on this podcast, because I'm going to cut all of that.
Okay. Yeah,
Franny,
Gabe was right.
Yeah, I saw it. Anyway, point is, Captain America's dead in this universe.
Hooray.
Would you have preferred this movie or a more clear-cut adaptation of the Old Man Logan comic that has everybody else in it?
I definitely prefer this.
Me too.
The Old Man Logan comic is very interesting and very cool, but I think that it's not really fit to be a movie.
No, I like it as a story, but I much prefer the film, I think. It's just much more personal.
I think seeing Logan get eaten by a massive Incredible Hulk is something that can only happen in the comics.
That's a good moment. And I like Blind Clint Barton a lot.
Yeah.
But
I feel like there's a lot of stuff that they couldn't put in a movie. Like the weird incest Hulk family probably wouldn't be in the movie.
That's weird. I don't like that. Yeah, I mean, it is a Mark Millar comic, and, you know, he's done, like, Kick-Ass and stuff, so he's, like, edgy comic guy. But he's got some banger stories. He did Civil War also.
Yeah.
So he's written some pretty
He's done
great
good
Marvel
stuff.
stories. Yeah, but even though I think on our Civil War episode I turned on that comic a little bit. It's still good. I still think it's, like, revolutionary.
Yeah, there's some stuff in it that's...
Yeah, but whatever. What do I know? I don't know anything. I only read comics all day.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Franny, we are in the era, and we've already been in it, but we're in the era of what I call the sad dad Marvel Cinematic Universe, which it's not just the cinematic universe, but it starts with Captain America Civil War, and there's a couple of omissions, but this goes from about Civil War to Deadpool 2. These are what I call the sad dad Marvel movies. There were ones before and there's ones after, but these are the main ones, okay? Mm-hmm. Captain America Civil War has all the Howard Stark stuff. Mm-hmm. Logan is a sad dad. Mm-hmm. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 has Ego as a sad dad. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man has Vulture as a sad dad. Ragnarok has the death of Odin, sad dad. Black Panther has him talking to his dad in the spirit realm, sad dad.
Sad dead dad.
Sad dead dad. Infinity War has Thanos, maybe the saddest dad of them all. Other than maybe Logan, I guess. He's a pretty sad dad. And Deadpool 2 has Wade Wilson constantly being like, oh, I want to be a dad. And then he has that kid that he hangs out with, and he's also a sad dad at the end. So I don't know why, but all of these movies now are about sad dads. This also applies to Ant-Man, because he's a sad dad. He can't see his kid. This applies to all of the Thor movies, actually. It applies to Iron Man 2, sad dad. It applies to Spider-Verse, sad dad. They have that conversation through the wall where he's a sad dad.
All of the movies involving Tony Stark and Spider-Man,
exactly.
sad dad.
Sad dad, yeah. So, yeah, Far From Home is a sad dad movie in a lot of ways. But so that's what's going on. Vision, he's a sad dad. They had to say goodbye to the kids.
Sad dad.
Yeah, so all these sad dads, Franny.
Yeah.
Just so many of them.
No happy dads.
No happy. Yeah, I mean, there might not be a single happy dad in these movies. Maybe Ant-Man in Ant-Man and the Wasp is a happy dad. That is the only exception I can think of right now. Anyway, I just thought I would put that out there.
Lots of
realized
sad
that
old
yesterday.
men.
Yesterday I was walking around thinking about this movie, and I was like, oh, "There's a lot of fucking sad dads right now around this era," which is okay. I love my dad. I love a sad dad story. They get me, but I think it's interesting. It's like how Disney movies, everyone's an orphan all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess everyone has a sad dad.
Dead moms and sad dads.
Yeah, I don't even want to go through the dead mom count because I think every single one of the Avengers has dead mom.
Probably.
I guess we don't know where Hulk's mom is. We never will. We know where she is in Ang Lee's Hulk. She got like beaten up or something.
Yeah, she's dead.
She's probably dead. Anyway, moms aside, Franny, I don't know why you keep banging on about these moms. We need to talk about Hugh Jackman is obviously mind-blowing in this movie. He's absolutely incredible. And he's been incredible as Wolverine for the 17 years that he did it.
Definitely been the highlight of most of the X-Men movies.
Yes, and what an incredible finale for this character. Like, he got the perfect end to his story. But I think the performance that should have won an Oscar is Sir Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier.
He was absolutely incredible the entire movie.
He steals it for me. Like, as great as everyone and everything about this is, he just plays it perfectly. And he's funny also. Like, this is a devastatingly sad movie, but there is a lot of good humor in it. Sprinkled throughout.
I think Charles is probably the saddest part of this entire movie. His entire character.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because you first see him, and I told you, Fran, he's yelling about the chalupa or whatever.
He's ranting about the quesalupa with the cheese inside the shell.
Yeah, and he's... I always interpreted that as he must be like reading radio waves or something, because it sounds like he's reciting like radio commercials or whatever. So there's that. But then that's immediately followed by his scene with Logan, where he's like, "Oh, you're such a disappointment," and he gives him the pills, which is a thing throughout the movie, where he's making him take these pills so he doesn't have the seizures. And at a point, he starts not taking them and hiding them and whatever, and that's why those things happen, where he just devastates everyone around him. All that's great, and it's great to see such a character that we've seen tons of times, and we've seen him just be this completely like stoic figure of good, and he's constantly talking to his students and giving life lessons, and he is just a broken person.
Yeah, he is he's essentially just given up.
He's basically like a dementia patient or something. Like, he just doesn't have it anymore, and he used to. And if this was just somebody playing Professor X, it wouldn't be nearly as good, but
no,
we've seen him for 17 years at this point.
We've been through a lot with Patrick Stewart's Charles Xavier, so it's very sad to see where he ends up.
Right, the fact that this movie, the only X-Men in this movie are Logan and Professor X, and they're like the pillars of the first X-Men movie. Like, we have been with them and watched that relationship this whole time. The fact that they both end up in such dark places in this, and they both die. Like, there is a shot early on where it's Caliban, Logan, and Professor X, and I was just like, oh no, this isn't going to go well for any of you guys. Everybody in this shot is going to die horribly. Like,
literally only one of the, I guess, 4 main characters lives.
Yeah, and she lives, but she's lost her dad. Like, no one is having a good time at any point in this movie. Not really, except for one incredible dinner scene. But anyway, as soon as the road trip starts, because this is a road trip movie for at least like a big section of it, I think.
Most of the middle of the movie is like a road trip.
Right.
Like the entire second act, pretty much.
That's an interesting place to take a superhero movie. Like, that's not a commonly seen thing. And I think that that's something this movie does well. It's not just, oh, this is a Western with a superhero in it. It's, we take traditional superhero things and you change those too. Like, and we'll talk way more about this later, but a lot of the time we'll complain about a movie where a superhero basically fights a different colored version of themselves. So what do you do in this? You make him fight a clone of his younger
a younger version of himself.
Which is much more interesting than just another, like, enhanced Weapon X guy.
Yeah.
It's not Weapon 11. It's not Deadpool. It could be because it has been, but it's not. It's just, it's you back when you had it and you were fucking vicious.
Yeah,
Like,
it's you when your all of your powers were still functional.
yeah, the way we're familiar with him.
Yeah.
But he is used to his full evil potential, which was why he was invented. And that's a struggle he's had since the first X-Men, where Professor X is helping him remember his past. And you see that a lot more in X2, I think, where they go to Weapon X, and he's just having all these vicious flashbacks to, like, these people, and they did horrible things to him. And you see that in X-Men Origins, that's a silly version of it. But even that portion of that movie is probably the best portion of that movie. Like,
Yeah.
that's probably the scene that needed to be good, and I think it's a fine scene. He's running around Weapon X, chopping people up, and then that's done even better in Apocalypse, obviously. That's, like, one of the standout moments in that. So it's just wonderful that we get to see that. And those two on a road trip together with X-23 also. What a fucking great idea. Like, what a great dynamic they have.
Yeah. And then being able to pass off is just like, yep, it's just my daughter and my dad going on a road trip.
Right, yeah, and it basically is.
Yeah,
Professor
pretty
X
much.
is basically his dad, I mean, and he is actually her dad, so it's that scene where they meet that family on the road because those, like, robot-controlled cars go crazy and all the horses are running away and they have to wrangle them up. Incredible. Like, great. Because from that, it's just this kind Midwestern family, and they're like, hey, do you guys want to come eat dinner with us? And Logan's like, no, we have a lot of important shit to do. I want to get this over with as soon as possible. And Professor X is like, no, we can take a break for the first time.
We could spend a day.
Maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
This is the first time, because they were just they're on the Texas border, and they need to get to the Canadian border, but they're just living in the most ramshackled, like, he's stuck in a water tower. You get that incredible action scene.
Yeah, they're in some, like, steel factory or something.
Yeah, well, it's said that it's owned by like, gangsters or whatever.
Yeah.
Some I don't remember where. It's like North Korean, whatever.
Yeah, it's something, like, random.
Yeah, and I assume that Professor X probably makes it. He does that X-Men First Class thing where he just makes it look like they're not there. You know, like, I think it's probably something like that. So they're hiding out because they have to. But then they're compromised as soon as the villain shows up with his robot hand. He's fine.
Whatever.
He's not the strongest villain. The villains don't matter.
Yeah,
That's
they're
the thing.
definitely, like, the weakest part of the movie, but they're also not really the focus. So.
And I'm still satisfied when that guy gets beat up because he sucks.
Oh, yeah.
He's an asshole.
He gets brutally killed
That is
by, like, a group of kids.
That's insane. Like, they just tangled in vines and electrocute. I love that they're still electrocuting him the whole time. Like, what a horrible, horrible way to die. But fuck that guy. That's cool. And those guys show up, and we get this huge action set piece where it starts as just a fight with lots of claws just everywhere, just cutting people in half in the grossest ways, and then it turns into a car chase, and then they have to go. Like, that's all. That stuff is great. That is a great sequence.
It's a very long sequence too.
Yeah,
it's like
is.
Probably like at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, probably. And I think that's also great because it's completely story driven. They show up, so they have to leave. They weren't going to leave until that point. But I like how Professor X talks to Laura through, telepathy, and it's what a wonderful thing that we have this movie, and it's this understated, but also has incredible action set pieces.
Yeah,
it's wonderful, and I love her when she's throwing down with people, and she walks out with that guy's head and just throws it at them. That's so great. They
fucking foot claw.
Yeah, exactly. She has 6 claws, and Logan has 6 claws, but she has them top and bottom. So that's also crazy. It's like, that's different.
Yeah.
I know that she can heal, but this movie has a shot of like a 10-year-old girl getting skewered through the chest.
Oh yeah, she gets a harpoon through the chest.
This movie
that's brutal.
This does not care about violence towards children at all either. Like, that kid commits suicide in that video.
Yeah.
You don't see the body land, but you see him jump off a building,
Yeah.
and that cuts. You see all the kids getting, like, put down and experimented on. Like, it is horrific. It's not just bloody and Professor X goes, "Oh, fuck you, Logan." Like, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, this movie does not hold back in any sense whatsoever.
No, thank God. Thank God it doesn't. Because this isn't isn't it great how violent it is? The violence is cool all the time.
Yeah,
but it's also
it is
horrific.
not glorified in any way.
No,
It's like, this is all horrible.
It's realistic. It really is. Because you watch the Wolverine, that's a violent movie, but it's kind of like fun. Like that's fun Wolverine violence.
Hey, look at the ninjas.
Yeah, let's find the ninjas. But Wolverine versus ninjas, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
But sad Wolverine just being devastated, I'll take that maybe once every year because it makes me want to die. But I love it so much, and it's better. And I'm so happy that we have this, and it's so violent, but it's also so sweet and great, and it understands these characters. And the dinner scene where they sit down with that family and act like normal people is incredible. And they're all talking, and that kid is like, oh, I could drop out of school and we could go on vacation. And Logan's like, oh, he used to run a school. Be careful who you're talking to. It was a special needs school. He was a student. He's always getting kicked out or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, all of that is great because we know the context, but it also works as like just a funny story for this family. It's perfect. And it is like the one moment of bliss in the entire film. The one moment where people aren't crying or fighting for their lives. And it's great because you need that.
It gets there, but
it gets there and it gets worse. Like things just get worse. They start at the worst place and they just go down. Yeah, but that is
it never gets better.
It's the one breather moment in the whole film, and you need that. You really do. It's Leia and Han getting to Cloud City, where everything's cool for like 3 minutes, and then Lando's like, "Oh, don't go in that room. Oh, Darth Vader's here. I sold you guys out." It's that thing where everything's fine, and then the safest space is now the worst place you could possibly be.
There was a very weird deleted scene involving that scene.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say the Sabretooth thing.
Well, yeah, that's weird too.
That's weird.
But,
I'm glad that's not in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know why there would be action figures of villains in that universe, but
yeah.
Okay. In that dinner scene, there was a scene where Charles brings up Jean Grey.
Oh, really? I don't think I've even seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well,
but
I'll play
he
a clip
blames
of that.
Logan for it. Like, they're talking to that family, and it's just like, yeah, he used to have a wife. Her name was Jean Grey. He killed her.
He says Jean Grey. That's
Yeah.
weird. Okay, I don't like that. I like that they never say the names of anybody.
Yeah.
Like, you see Cyclops in a comic or whatever, but they don't say it.
Yeah, I'll try to find it. But it just felt really, like, weird and wrong, and I'm glad they took it out.
Yeah, that's too far.
Thank you.
Now, what about you, James? You married?
Oh, well,
It's a natural thing to ask.
He was. She passed.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She was a pupil at my school. I knew her for many, many years. She was so lovely. Her name was Jean Grey. He killed her.
Okay, so we watched the Jean Grey scene. That's bad. Because
Very bad scene for many reasons.
they can't be. They shouldn't be led on that something's wrong about them.
Yeah.
The whole point is that they just seem like a normal family. And then when those racists show up, those rednecks, to like they're shut down the water and whatever, and Logan goes with the father so they can sort it out, and he scares those guys off and breaks the guy's nose.
Snaps a shotgun in half.
Shotgun up. That's like the one kind of implication to them that, oh, this is a little weird, but
Yeah.
it's not enough for them to be like, get the fuck out of here, you're a freak. They seem like accepting people, so I don't like that there would be any implication of, oh yeah, he killed his wife, because that's weird. Don't say that. Also, why would you say that to Logan? That's horrible.
Yeah. Also, why would you just name drop a character when they don't... That name doesn't mean anything to them. Why would you need to say her name?
Yeah, what a weird fucking thing for you to say, too.
And if that was in the movie, being the one name drop of somebody that isn't in the movie, like, that's just weird.
That's absolutely pointless. Yeah, I hate that. That's really bad. But Sabretooth was also going to be in this movie at a point. I think.
Like, actually in the movie?
Yeah, like, actually in the movie. And, you don't need that.
Yeah.
Like, he's fine, but I don't want that.
Yeah, I don't know where that would even fit in at all.
I think they were going to Oklahoma or something. I think it's in that sequence a little bit. Like, maybe after that happens, like after they have to get out of there, they go see Sabretooth or something. I don't know. Waste.
That wouldn't make any sense,
Well,
but
yeah, that's why they didn't film it.
yeah.
I think they were also gonna film Professor X killing the X-Men, which I kind of do want to see, but I think
I'm very curious, but I think it's for the best that it's not in the movie.
It would have been probably like, even if it was devastating, it would have been too laser. That would be lasery. Scott would shoot his lasers everywhere. I don't want that in this. No, thank you. God, the MCU is going to be really excited when they get their hands on a guy who just shoots lasers out of his eyes. That's exactly what they need, is as many lasers as possible.
God, I hope when they bring in the X-Men that they don't try to get Hugh Jackman back.
No, I think he said the only way he would ever come back was for a Deadpool thing. But he also said that when this came out. Like, I don't think he would do that now. Enough time has passed that you don't need that.
Yeah.
Like, I love him, but he doesn't need to do that.
Pass it on to somebody else. He's been known as Wolverine for like 20 years. You can pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, and he had exactly perfect ending. I don't want to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I mean, Deadpool 2 aside, which is, you know, I really like that movie, but this could have been the final X-Men movie, and it would have been perfect, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that they didn't let this just be the last one.
No, they didn't. It had to end. Can you tell me how Dark Phoenix ended, Frank? Do you remember?
Lots of fire?
Yeah, lots of fire, and then they were talking about Jean Grey, and they looked up in the sky, and the Phoenix flew by. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we laughed. Randy, that's not what should happen.
Yeah, that movie's a joke.
Bad. That's so bad, yeah. I totally forgot about that until right now, but that makes me angry that this wasn't it. Also, I just want to mention, yes, before the movie, the Deadpool 2 teaser thing played, and it was very funny.
I still love that.
I completely did not expect it. I thought the movie was starting because it's shot like Logan, like it looks very serious, how you would imagine it. But then the camera spins around and it's fucking Wade Wilson, and I thought that was hilarious at the time.
Yeah,
I didn't rewatch that bit, but
I remember it being very good.
I remember it being funny.
Yeah,
they played a Superman theme. Don't know how they did that.
Yeah,
but I guess they
lots
did.
of money.
Lots of money, I guess, or it's parody. I guess it's fine, whatever. This brings us to the point where we get Charles Xavier's final scene, and maybe his best scene in any of these movies, where he talks about how this is the best day he's had in like
years,
30 years.
Yeah.
But he doesn't deserve it because of what he did, and he remembers what he did, and he's glad he's here with Logan, but he doesn't deserve it. And then it looks like, from our perspective, that Logan kills him, and everybody is like, I remember in the theater, you see like one shot of Hugh Jackman, the young Hugh Jackman, but then it just cuts to him getting stabbed in the heart. And everyone in the theater didn't know what was going on because that character wasn't introduced. So that was shocking because it looked like Logan killed him. And
literally in the scene before, wasn't Logan talking about how much he loves Charles?
Yeah, exactly. But that's why it was so surprising.
Yeah,
it was like, what has happened?
Yeah, like what the fuck?
You're doing like mental gymnastics, like, oh my god, did he realize that he was too powerful to be kept alive or whatever? He needed to be killed. And then it becomes very apparent that in a huge twist in this movie, there is a young, de-aged Hugh Jackman running around who looks like, basically, I mean, he has a shaved head, so he looks a little different, but he basically looks like Wolverine from X-Men 1.
Yeah.
And that is terrifying because I did not expect that at all. And he kills the entire family.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he wipes them out. The bad guys know where they are, so that's fucking bad. Like, every time they think that they're safe, they're not, because something clues the bad guys in on where they are. And they have a Wolverine clone, and it's an incredible fight. A Wolverine versus Wolverine fight. You get that great shot where all of the claws are, like, on top of each other, and he's trying to stab him in the head. And it's just so violent. It's so violent, Franny. It's maybe the most violent part of the movie.
I mean, Logan gets a full hand of claws straight through the chest and then thrown.
Yes, exactly. And, that kind of happens again later.
Yeah.
More fatal effect, but I
mean, that fight does literally end with the evil Logan, I guess.
X-24.
Yeah, X-24 getting rammed with a car into a tree and impaled in like 6 different places.
It's so violent.
And
It's
also
so violent.
shotgun blasted in the face like 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. So that's that. And there's also that nice scene between Laura and the kid from the family where they like share music or whatever, because she's never really heard music properly because she was, raised in a lab. So you get that like they make you care so much about this family. It's kind of a parallel to that scene in X-Men Origins where that old couple takes him in and then like 2 minutes later they get machine gunned and you're supposed to care. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
This is the inverse of that, where you care so much and then they're just
they
wiped out.
dedicate a lot of time to like developing the whole family, and then they all die horribly.
Right, exactly. And it's like just more loss, and it happens right after Charles Xavier gets stabbed through the heart. But I do love that before he like dies, Logan's able to tell him like, oh, that wasn't me. Like, I'm glad he didn't die thinking Logan killed him, 'cause that was a big concern of mine when I first saw that. It's like, oh, he wouldn't know. Like, his last thought would be Wolverine killed him.
Yeah.
That's horrible. But luckily he had like a second to explain that before he died. And that whole like the whole farm sequence might be my favorite sequence in the movie because it's masterful. It's
pretty much perfect.
And that setup of the the like racists coming in to shut off the water and their conflict, and then they come back and just get massacred.
Yeah.
Very satisfying for me. I like seeing that a lot, and I love that. I love all of that.
It's incredible.
You get the burial of Professor X, which is a very intense scene, and it brings Laura and Logan closer together, and it's wonderful.
Probably the most upset we have ever seen Logan.
Probably,
like on the verge of crying, and
Yeah.
then just kind of has a anger fit like usual.
Exactly, because we see him scream in like every X-Men movie ever. Like,
Yeah.
that's a thing. That's the name of this podcast. Every X-Men movie ever. He's constantly just screaming at stuff, and he screams in this, but it's not. Sometimes it's creepy. Like, once you notice how much Wolverine screams in movies, it kind of makes it weird when he just does it all the time. Whenever anything bad
He's got to
happens.
power up.
But it's better in this because it's that happens after a moment of real emotion from him. Basically, the rest of the movie is them hauling ass to get to North Dakota, which is where her friends are, where she thinks her friends are. And Logan's like, they're fucking not there. As in comic book, you're an idiot kid. And she punches him in the head. I love that scene where she just keeps punching him in the head. Like, it's so violent. It's so violent. There's something about kids who punch their parents. That's just terrifying.
There's something very scary about a mostly mute child just punching fucking Wolverine directly in the face like 3 times.
And then we get to, and then she does start talking. She screams at him in Spanish for a little bit, and then eventually she starts speaking English as the movie goes on. She speaks more and more, which I like that too. I think that's great because previously she'll scream like a feral dog, but she won't talk. She's not saying anything, and then he doesn't even know that she can talk.
Yeah, she starts talking. He's like, "Why the fuck have you not been talking this whole time?"
Exactly, and that's a great moment. Oh, I feel really
no existo.
I feel really bad. Yeah, I don't know. Is that okay? I don't know. But I feel really bad for that gas station attendant.
Oh yeah,
he has a shitty day. Getting thrown around by X-23.
Yeah, he has like a shitty like 2 days.
Killed by the Reavers. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty terrible. Oh wow, we really are getting there. Eventually, they get. Does anything happen on the way? He goes to the doctor at a point, and the doctor's like, "Yeah, you're fucking dying. Let me care for you. Like, I'm not gonna rat you out or anything." He's just a very honest guy. He wants to help him out. And Logan's like, "Fuck you. I'm fine. Whatever."
Also, X-23 can drive apparently.
Yeah, well, she has to because he keeps falling asleep at the wheel. There is, I will say, towards the last, actually through the whole movie, there is a lot of Logan falling asleep and waking up. Like, it's how it starts as he wakes up in the back of that car. It happens 4 times at the end where he falls asleep on the wheel, he falls asleep and they cut his beard into the Wolverine
and he
beard.
falls asleep for days at a time.
Yeah, he falls for 2 days at a point, Richter tells him. But anyway, basically next big thing, there's some father-daughter bonding, but as time goes on...
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, fuck that. I mean, there's more as it goes on, which is nice, but we get to the camp where there's all these kids, and a lot of them have similar powers to people that Wolverine knew. There's an ice one, and you know, all these weird fuckers. There's like a Nightcrawler looking guy with sharp teeth. All these weirdos who are like, they were probably made using the DNA of Wolverine's friends, which that can't be good for him.
Yeah, that's
either.
probably not great.
Yeah, I don't think he likes that. But they do cut his beard into traditional Wolverine, like sideburn stuff. I think that's fun that they do that. I think they do the same thing in Mad Max 3. So there you go. There's a reference. Yeah, and then the final action scene happens. This big block of just lots of killing.
Yeah, big chase scene, and then a lot of people die.
Incredible, like, one-shot take of him running through the forest, slitting all these throats. It's not really one shot. It's like 4 stitched together, but it looks incredible.
Yeah, he uses steroids so that he can actually use his powers for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't last
And then he just
long.
starts to shut down even more than usual because he used a little too much.
Yeah, and God, we actually, if we do want to make one parallel to the Snyder Cut, the Ice Kid freezes that guy's arm and shatters it.
Yeah.
Like he did to that axe in that movie. So, great uses of everybody's powers. I like all of that because they all do interesting stuff. The kid who like takes all the pine needles and throws them into that guy.
Yeah.
That's fucking visceral.
There was another brutal one that got cut out of the movie where a kid like started mind controlling one of them, gunned down 2 guys, and then shot himself.
Oh my God, I didn't watch the deleted scenes. I'd only seen the saber tooth.
I was curious. There's like 7 minutes of deleted
Oh,
scenes.
geez, I gotta get on that then, 'cause they sound,
Yeah.
I mean, the Jean Grey one was bad, so. But
Yeah,
that
most
one
of them,
sounds good.
it just seems like they cut them out because like they weren't necessary. They didn't need to add like minutes of stuff onto the movie because
It's
it
a
was already long.
Very tight movie though. Like it's
Yeah.
long, but I wouldn't cut a second of it. Like it's all great.
Yeah.
Because like the slow stuff, it's all character stuff and just atmosphere building. Because this is like the second future X-Men movie. We get the Dark Future and Days of Future Past, and then you get this, which is like so much more realistic. It's like, yeah, that could happen, where it's like everything is just a little worse, and there's these huge like corporate-driven robot-controlled machines, and everyone's eating terrible genetically modified foods. It's like, yeah, that could just happen. Like this looks like it's like Children of Men, where it's like, yeah, this future could just happen, like now. It's
Yeah.
totally believable. Which, you know, I like Sentinels, but this is more realistic for a more realistic movie. And then we get to the end, which is the fight with X-24 and X-23 and Logan, and it's brutal, and they drop a fucking truck on him, and that's pretty horrific.
And that still doesn't kill him.
And it doesn't kill him. He gets up, and he picks up Logan, he beats the shit out of him, he picks him up, and he impales him on a fucking tree stump, which is like, that's the worst thing that could happen. And then he stabs him with his claws a couple times again, and that's it for him.
Yeah,
Logan's
it's
wiped
pretty
out.
bad.
And X-24,
Sure
the adamantium bullet, another great setup. He was gonna go blow his brains out with that, but X-24 gets shot in the head by X-23.
Yeah.
His head
His head is
exploded.
gone.
It looks like when Batman shot that parademon. Like
Yeah.
a chunk is missing.
Like the majority of his head is gone.
Yes, and that's fitting end for that guy. I also like that he doesn't have a healing factor, but you can pump him full of drugs to heal him.
Yeah.
Like they have to physically heal him. He's not perfect, and I like that element of that character too. But yeah, X-23, she cuts the tree stump so he can be on the ground, and then it's the most emotional thing. I don't even know how to talk about it. Watching this character that we've just all loved for so long, even at his worst, like this, when he is broken, he's still so much fun to watch, and you care so much about him. And he dies in front of his daughter. Like, and by that point, he does accept her as his daughter. It's just, it's
Yeah.
beautiful and it's perfect. And there's that line in the Wolverine when Yukio tells him, "You die holding your heart in your hands. You die on your back covered in blood, holding your heart in your hands." And that's what happens, but it's not his physical heart. It's his daughter. That's so sad. That's so sad.
Uh-oh, Gabe's gonna start
I'm
crying
gonna
on the
cry.
podcast.
I did cry when it happened, obviously. 'Cause it's devastating, but
It's very sad.
yeah, so that is just perfect. Again, I love foreshadowing and payoff within a movie, but the thing I love even more is when you set
These
something
dead
up.
characters.
No, that makes me cry. But when you set up something 4 years earlier, you put that in that movie because he directed that movie.
Yeah.
So clearly that's a thing that he remembered and put back in this in a perfect way. Yeah. So that death is just incredible and iconic, and I love that it's so Like, even that is raw. Like, he got impaled on a tree. Like, that's what happened to him. It wasn't some glamorous sacrifice. Like, he didn't even sacrifice himself to save the world. He fought and he lost.
Yeah, he literally just got his ass kicked and then got impaled on a tree.
Yeah.
Like, he did not get even close to winning.
No. I mean, at least he died in battle. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's horrific. Because, it's not... Even at the end, when our main character for 17 years dies, it's not this big heroic... he doesn't snap and save the universe.
Yeah, it's just... He's old.
Yeah, like
he can't heal himself anymore.
Tony Stark's death works for that movie.
Yeah.
But this works so much better for this. Like, this is just a flawless ending. And his final words to her is just incredible. Basically, all this stuff where it's like, I understand what it's like to be created as a weapon. Don't do that. Don't let them,
Don't be me.
Don't be what they made you. Exactly. It's perfect. And he dies, and she recites that Shane speech, and they bury him, and she walks away. And then...
This is like the cheesiest thing in the movie.
You didn't like it? I think it earns it.
I thought it was fine. I didn't hate it. I just thought that it was like, of course they're gonna do that.
I loved it. I thought it was so great.
I was literally like, I saw it and I was just waiting for it to happen.
Well, it does. She
like
turns
I knew it was gonna happen.
that cross into an X for X-Men. I think that's beautiful. Like, I think that's actually, because the movie isn't about the X-Men, but there is that undercurrent of he existed, he was this great hero, and now he's not. So I think it's great that, he did try to save, not the world, but he tried to save something important to him again, and he kind of became an X-Men again in his final moments. You see that with his physical transformation where they cut his beard, and then you see that at the very end, and they turn that cross into an X. And I think that if this was a worse movie, that would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
But it completely earns it, and it's so grounded that I think that's great. And she's a child who grew up, like, reading these stories about him. So the fact that she gets to bury him, it makes sense that she would do that.
The only thing that she knew about him before the movie is just by reading X-Men comics.
Exactly.
So it makes sense.
I think it totally makes sense. And
that's the last shot of the movie.
That's the last shot of the movie. And then, you get some Johnny Cash at the end, and I think it's a perfect movie. I don't have a single problem with this movie, quite frankly. I think it is a flawless
It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad we got to talk about it. It's probably the best Marvel movie to me. I just think it's so mature, and not just in its violence and its content. The one moment I don't like, and I've complained about before, I don't like when that bridesmaid just like takes her boobs out for a second.
Yeah,
just
that was
to get
weird
some
and like really out of
nudity
place
in it. It's like, I get it. He has like all these like rowdy customers.
Yeah, that wasn't needed.
It felt like it was for, and I don't have any problem with nudity in movies. I'm just saying,
it was very much an audience thing.
In that instance, it was like, okay.
Yeah, it was like,
cool,
all right,
great,
whatever.
Good job. Yeah, I think that's like the one, and that doesn't matter. Every time
whatever.
I see that, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from the movie. It's just like, why was that needed?
It's the only thing in the entire movie where I would even slightly complain.
Yeah,
about, though.
And even then, that's a very heavy nitpick because it's like 1 second of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Listener stuff there is so much. I can't read it all because it is so much, and I'm gonna have to edit this. And I have a flight and 125 homework questions this week. So
you start looking through all of them. All of them are just ads for other podcasts, and there's like 2 that are like actual people.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not. Yeah, no. I'm not. Yeah, whatever. So Paul says, and Paul didn't rate it, and I actually asked Paul to tell me what he thought because I knew this was the one X-Men movie that he liked. So
it was the only one that he didn't write about.
Yeah, so Paul said, Logan is an absolute banger of a film, definitely the best X-Men movie, which isn't hard since this is the only one that isn't mediocre. Proper 10 out of 10 this, all the characters are great. So is Hugh Jackman, Franny. That is a great pun. Calling X-24 Hugh Jackman, Franny. You don't think that's great? I think it's great. And X-23 is great too. Yeah. Just an amazing film start to finish. Patrick Stewart breaks my heart in this. Completely agree. Phil Better says, this is the #1 perfect superhero movie for me. Now people may see faults in this movie, and that's their choice and opinion. I choose to see this as both fan service by making it violent and R-rated, as they have wanted from the start with Wolverine, but also because the movie industry made... For the movie industry, they made big movie massive profits, which is all they care about. It showed These big studio heads that giving directors, writers, and creatives license to be creative can and will be successful for you, which as a fan means I can finally see some badass fucking movies like Endgame and the MCU with the people who love the source material and have done it justice, bring in my favorite characters. But for me, this movie is a masterpiece of a superhero movie about Wolverine. But for me, this movie is a masterpiece of a superhero movie about Wolverine should be. There's a lot of typos in this, but it's okay, Phil. I know you tried your best. Allowing the character to be themselves, celebrating the achievements of Hugh Jackman as the first ever portrayal of Wolverine in real life. Which I understand, because it's the first one that isn't, like, a little cartoony.
Yeah.
Because even the Wolverine is the most serious, but at the end that goes bonkers.
Still pretty,
yeah.
Fighting a giant samurai mech is it's pretty
People don't
weird.
like that. I like it, but it's definitely out of character.
Not the most realistic thing in the world.
No, it's kind of dumb, but I don't mind because
It's fine.
I really like that movie a lot. Noah says, it's really good, very ballsy move for the X-Men franchise, and it makes rewatching the original films even more impactful. As always, nothing about this timeline remotely matches up in this movie, but I don't care even because that's a fine sacrifice to make for an amazing story. Noah always says stuff like that, and I think it mostly makes sense. I would love to hear what he has to say. Everyone in this cast is giving it a 100 out of 10 performance, and I honestly can't get enough of them. Also, I think some people hate the cross becomes next thing at the end, but I think it's awesome. Totally agree. Like, you think it's okay. I think it's good. Like, I think that's a good creative choice. Joel says, this movie is slow, introspective, and beautiful. Easily my favorite, but not super rewatchable necessarily. I definitely agree with that. Because it's
sad.
It's so sad. I think Patrick Stewart is especially good in this. I think what I love most is it's not just gritty because it's violent and people are sad. It's gritty because it's got the weight of real human drama. Definitely agree. How many more of these? So, I feel like Chris Evans in the Spider-Man Homecoming end credits scene. How many more of these? No, I like that people write in.
Yeah.
Look, everybody says it's very good, which is true.
Expected.
Oh my god, and somebody says it's not good. Should
That's
I read
it?
that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Michael Tanner says, I think I've banged this drum enough on the group, but this movie is not good. When people talk about how good this movie is, I think they mean they like the first 40 minutes. Because after that, it's cliche, borderline boring in parts, and insulting. He literally fights himself. Subtext is text in this movie. What do you think, Franny? I don't think this is cliche at all because he fights himself. I think this is subversive because he literally fights himself. This whole movie is about Wolverine and his rage because he has to learn to become a hero again. So by fighting a version of himself that is just filled with anger, he's doing that.
And also, in most superhero movies, they fight a similar...
Right.
It's like a color-swapped version of themselves. This is literally just himself when he was better.
The only similar one is in Endgame when Captain America fights himself. But that's a comedy moment. That's not a... that's, oh, look how far this character has come, not look how far this character has fallen.
Yeah.
Which is what this is. And then people are arguing with him in there. all over the
People
place.
are entitled to their own opinions.
You
and if
cannot like this movie. I just think you're stupid. That's not true. That's not true. He's written it before and had lots of good opinions, so it's fine. Joe Wood says, fucking incredible. Just watched it for the first time after marathoning all the X-Men movies, and man, is it a powerful conclusion. If only it was the conclusion, Franny. Everything in this movie worked for me. Straight 10 out of 10. Absolutely agree. And okay, I'll read two more. Because this one's good. Andrew Dunn says, I just remember hearing about the correlation between the ending of Logan and Yukio's premonition of Logan's death in the Wolverine. So that's the thing we were talking about. And Tyler Thornton says, maybe I was just exhausted with Fox's X-Men films by the time this came out. I don't think it's that good. Kind of boring. Really disliked Wolverine fighting a clone of himself. Okay, so I guess people do have a problem with that. That's interesting.
I can see why people wouldn't like it, but I think it's good.
I think it's really smart. But that's fine. People can be wrong. It's okay. We can say whatever we want, Franny. No one's going to get to us.
Yeah.
I
would like to say it was a weird choice on my part to start this movie at midnight. Because I was up until 2:30 in the morning watching this movie in my living room.
Do you think it was more effective that you waited until you were all drowsy, or do you think it was less effective? Because I watched this yesterday about a cool 2 p.m. So I was very present.
I feel like it was more effective being drowsy, but I also wasn't drowsy enough where I was like falling asleep. This movie definitely kept my attention.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I don't think it would have changed too much if I had watched it at a different time. It was just very interesting being up at like
Yeah.
2:30 in the morning, being like, "Well, that was brutal."
Yeah, it's a
and then I was just like, "I'm tired," and then I went to sleep.
And I guess we do have to make the same point that everyone on the internet has always made. Yes, it's a little similar to The Last of Us, I guess, because it's a man with a beard and a little girl. I don't think it's similar. I think that's dumb.
It's not similar, but I think Hugh Jackman would have been a perfect Joel. But
I think so, but
yeah.
Pedro Pascal is Joel. That's weird. I don't know. If
It's
I like that.
really weird, but it's like, I
Look,
guess.
That is good, but it could be better.
Yep.
That's the thing. Brandon.
Yeah,
Says
I
in
know what
Wonder
it
Woman.
is.
Check out our episode on Wonder Woman 84. I'm sure we both like it less than we did at the time.
Probably.
I mean, it's fine. I don't care.
It's whatever.
It's just a little disinteresting. I think now, like, I don't think about that movie.
I haven't thought about it since the episode.
Yeah. I barely think about it. Okay, well, that's it for us. Next week, we will be talking about Batman and Robin with Noah again. We were probably supposed to talk about that this week, but we figured after talking about 4 Hour Snyder Cut, we talk about something
Yeah, need a bit of a break.
from the DC train, but I'm excited to get back on board with another crazy Schumacher thing.
Oh boy.
Excited, yeah, that'll be a lot of fun, because that movie is wild.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot, but I think most of the people in my family say that is their favorite Batman movie.
Well,
so
I know your family, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Okay, well, I can't wait for that. And then in 2 weeks, we will be back talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
yes, I'm so glad.
One
I
of
get to
my
watch that movie
absolute
again.
favorite superhero movies. Cannot wait to talk about that.
It's one of the few MCU movies that I've watched more than once.
I watch that many times a year.
Yeah, I
That's
think
a-
I've seen it at least 3 times.
That's a very comfort movie for me. I turn
Yeah.
that on a lot because it's just very I
very
love it.
similar to the first Guardians movie. That's also a very comfort movie.
Yeah, I would say that is too. I prefer the second one, but we'll get into that. We'll talk.
The second
all about
one
that.
is much better than the first one, even though the first one was already great. So
Yeah, it's like a 4.5 and a 5 for me. Like both of those movies are incredible. Okay, well, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Marvel Movie Pod. You can email us at marvelmoviepod@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at FlipDeg. You can find me on Twitter at FlipDeg, but the E-Neg is a 3. Franny is in a dark, distant future where cell phones have been outlawed, even though Logan does put on little glasses and type on a cell phone for a little bit. I don't know if you remember that.
yeah,
but
he sure
just
does.
Find those limo routes, I guess. If Logan picked you up and was like your Uber driver, would you trust him? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll
he's
see,
a very scary looking guy.
Yeah, he is. But don't you think he's a little sweet when he has his glasses on, Franny?
Well,
He's a little.
yeah,
he's a
it
little
definitely looks
grandpa.
funny to have the little glasses. It does look a little ridiculous.
Professor
but-
X does tell him, he's like, oh, you look younger with those or whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway, incredible movie. Great movie.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
go watch it.
Go
Wash
watch
your
it.
hands.
Well,
Stay safe.
Yeah, I mean, watch it if you're in a good mood. Quarantine's rough.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Hey, don't wake her yet. Let her sleep another hour. You know, Logan, this was, without a doubt, the most perfect night I've had in a very long time. But I don't deserve it. Do I? I did something unspeakable. I've remembered what happened in Westchester. This is not the first time I've hurt people. Until today, I didn't know. You wouldn't tell me. So we just kept on running away from it. I think I finally understand you.